Hello, viewers. It's Josie. Welcome back to Eclectic Movie Reviews. And today I am going to give some reviews of um um of films I've caught up with over the past couple months. And we're um it's December. It's winter time, so um, award season's kicking in, so I figured that I'd give a December dump of reviews. I'm gonna start with Anora, and I love this movie, and think it's very deserving of its accolades. I'm not gonna give a real summary for my write up of this because there's plenty of um, reviews that say what it's about, and you can look online. But what I love about Anora is that it's basically the story of a Russian mob wife of sorts, more goons than than the mafia, um, I should say. But you get the point. Told through the kick-ass mob wife's point of view. And Sean Baker actually stated in an interview that he was actually sort of partly inspired to write the story after reading a Canadian sex worker's memoir that documented how she married this guy who owed money to the Russian mob. And, Honora's a thought-provoking sort of eat the rich satire, social class satire with how it explores transactional dynamics between upper and lower classes. It's also a story about finding connection through what is essentially trauma and class struggle with Igor and Ani, or Anora. And the film shows how money does not buy genuine love. That said, even in the midst of class struggle, people can come together and have each other through mutual understanding and acceptance rather than superficial matters like fancy status and possessions. And everyone gives phenomenal performances in this film. Mikey Madison as Anora / Annie is highly deserving of the Best Lead Actress mentions that she's receiving. And I'm really excited to see where her career goes from here because she's just so fantastic in this film. Yura Borisov is also excellent as Igor. He's, as a lot of people are pointing out, the heart and soul of this movie, and he runs away with it, and he is super, super deserving of a Best Supporting Actor nomination. He's probably my favorite supporting male performance that I've seen this year, and just one of my favorite characters in a film this year, period. Their relationship, their relationship is just so sweet, and I just love how protective he is of Anora, and he sees her for who she really is, rather than just a sex object. And I love that. Karen Karagulian, Evans Tovmasian, again, I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong, are hysterical as the other two Russian goon henchmen. Mark Edelstein also gives a fantastic performance as Ivan, even though obviously he's a total piece of shit, but he's obviously, I'm sure he's very nice in real life, but he does such a great job at playing such a rich, spoiled brat. And of course, these actors would not shine without Sean Baker's empathetic writing of these characters. Sean Baker also does a great job here with not only the dialogue, but also with directing the nonverbal communication, particularly with Yura Borisov's character Igor. Obviously, Anora is a tough cookie with a bluntly sharp tongue, but Mikey Madison also excels with nonverbal communication, especially in the second half of the film, as her character goes through tough learning experiences. Her tough learning experience, I mean. And I should mention that I love even when Mikey Madison says something like so like harsh to your Borisov's character, he kind of likes it. He's just like, okay, cool, or impressive. um, and not many reviewers are describing Anora as a coming of age film, but I certainly would because a big part of growing up is learning the difference between superficial infatuation and true genuine love, and that's part of Annie's character arc. And then next, so that's Anora, and that's what I have to say about that. And then next up is since I do my reviews when I have like a list of stuff to review, I always go alphabetically. For the most part. Next up is Conclave, directed by Edward Berger. And again, I'm not going to give the summary of this because there's plenty of other reviews out there that give, the plot summary. And you can also read online. But to reiterate what other critics have said about Conclave, the acting is outstanding. Ralph Fiennes is incredible. John Lithgow and Stanley Tucci are also good. Very good. Even I love Isabella Rossellini in this. I know that we don't see her on screen as much as the men, but I think she gives such a grounded spirit to this movie, balancing the men's need for power and the intuitive voice. She's like the intuitive voice of reason. She also brings up women's role in the church and how women, could serve a bigger purpose. And, I would not be surprised if she pulled a Beatrice Straight or Judi Dench and won the Oscar for supporting actress, even for, quote, limited screen time. Because her character is just so impactful and is crucial. Is really crucial to the narrative. And also, shout out to Sergio Castellitto and Carlos Diaz. Their performances, especially Carlos Diaz, are being really under-discussed. And what's great about him, about Carlos Diaz's character, I don't want to reveal much for those who haven't seen it yet, but he also has he's also very, very, obviously very important to the narrative, and his performance is I don't want to say reserved. I mean, I guess you can say that. But let's just say, for those who haven't seen it yet, it's a performance that sneaks up on you, particularly towards the end. And what's great about this movie, besides the excellent acting ensemble, is that it's funny. And the way these men are catty to one another is delightfully entertaining. One aspect my mom pointed out about it is that she really responded to was the sound work. She loved the sound of Ralph Fiennes breathing. And what I love most about this film, for all its political intrigue, this film is surprisingly humanist and hopeful about the future. It is nuanced about the clerical issues it goes into and proposes solutions of hope and optimism rather than just projecting a dire future. And that's what I have to say about Conclave. It's really good, and you should check it out if you haven't seen it yet. And it's awesome that it was a pretty good box office hit this fall. And my aunt at the library, we actually even had a brief conversation about it when I was picking up books one day. Uh, so yeah, that's Conclave and now streaming on Peacock. Next up is Flow, Latvia's entry into the international feature race, also a contender for animated feature. Directed by Gintzil Baladis. I, again, could be mispronouncing, but whatever. My apologies, I mean. Uh, so the story follows an unnamed cat's adventure after a natural disaster as it, I'm referring to the cat as it because we don't even know the gender of the cat, I don't think. I mean, online it says he, but I'm just going to go by my own rules. I like to picture the cat as the girl, even though the cats sort of remind me of my brother's cat Toto, who is a boy. But anyway, so the story follows a cat's adventure after a natural disaster as it befriends a dog, a capybara, a lemur, and a bird. And it's a touching story of, and thrilling story of found family. And my mom and I loved this movie. It's so beautiful. It's a masterclass of powerfully effective storytelling without dialogue. And I love the score, and the animation is superbly inventive. And the stakes in this movie are so high, like obviously because it's about like the effects of a natural disaster, and you root so hard for the animals, and you just cheer for them as they find connection with one another, and you know. It's interesting what this film shows. It's like sometimes like they're like studies like say, or like some like even like some like psychic intuitive people say that like animals with their instincts can pretty much always find each other because like they with how their instincts are, and that's sort of portrayed in this movie. And overall, I see Flow as an allegory about flowing through life, both the joys of connection and exploration and punches of obstacles life throws at you. More importantly, it illustrates the strength and resilience that comes from that. And to reiterate, the way we form bonds and trust in each other. Okay. Next up is His Three Daughters, written and directed by Azazel Jacobs. So, Rachel, played by Natasha Lyonne, Katie, played by Carrie Coon, and Christina, played by Elizabeth Olsen, are three sisters on very different paths in life. We're sort of estranged from each other. And when their father is dying from cancer, they all come to New York City and reconnect and heal from past volatile tribulations with one another. And all three performances are fantastic. But what really elevates the performances is the emotionally raw and honest writing from Azazel Jacobs. Part of why it's so grounded is that it doesn't feel overly melodramatic. And much of the humor comes from how different the sisters are from one another. And, the most intriguing aspect of how the sisters' relationship dynamic is the way they are forced to come to terms with the fact that none of them is right or wrong in all this. It's like and the most important thing is that even if they have quibbles with one another, they have to learn that not to let that ruin each other's lives. And it's not about them liking everything about each other. It's about finding peace in the moment, especially as they come to terms with the, inevitability of their father about to pass. And what's this film also feels like a play in a good way though. Like the way the blocking is directed by Azazel Jacobs is pretty remarkable. And I also found, like, for those of you who don't know, my dad actually passed away almost 2 years ago, and it, it has been hard, but I've made it through, and I've, learned a lot about myself, and I've connected with with my loved ones, and yeah, I think anybody who has faced that kind of loss in their struggle in their uh even if it's like a health, not even like a death, but like a health battle with a family member, I think could relate to this movie. But it's also each sister in the film has their own like personal journey they have to work through, as well as coming to terms with um where their father's life is at. uh yeah, real powerful depiction of interpersonal relationships. So that's His Three Daughters, streaming on Netflix. Next up is I Saw the TV Glow, written and directed by Jane Schoenbrunn. I was initially hesitant to check this movie out, but what made me finally want to see it was Martin Scorsese championing it. Sorry. And he's right. I Saw the TV Glow is an incredibly thought-provoking examination of how those who are inhibited from expressing themselves cling to media as a means of escape and comfort. Because Owen and Maddie, played really fantastically by Justice Smith and Bridget Lundy Page, feel blocked from being who they truly are, watching The Pink Opaque is their resort to filling that void. Interestingly enough, the name of the high school they attend to is Void High School. And the color usage in the film is remarkably vibrant. One review I listened to stated that there is a heavy focus on the colors of the rainbow, given the theme of queer coding. And certainly this film can be looked at as an allegory for those in the LGBTQ plus community who have felt inhibited from expressing themselves in the past, now finally given the chance to be themselves. But I think that the screenplay is written vaguely enough for anyone who has felt psychologically prevented from expressing themselves for whatever reason. And going into this movie, I was concerned about it being preachy with the messaging, given that it concerns young people, but it's surprisingly not. Schoenbrunn does a great job at show don't tell. Back to the color palette. There, it back to the color palette. There, I think there's a smart balance of lights and darks. My reasoning for this is that the Pink Opaque, at least in the relative short term, is Owen and Maddie's light in the darkness in their lives. Harsh reality, though, especially for Owen, is that the addiction to nostalgia only leads to a deeper hole of sadness. In her book Atlas of the Heart, Brene Brown says, "We define nostalgia as a yearning for the way things used to be in our often idealized and self-protective version of the past." She also says, "Nostalgia is also a dangerous form of comparison. Think about how we compare our lives to a memory that is so completely edited and has never really existed." And that's very applicable, especially towards the end of I Saw the TV Glow. And listen, I love seeing on Instagram those POV, you're a child growing up in the late 90s, early 2000s videos just as much as the rest of us. In fact, I save a lot of those videos and I sometimes look at them when I want to tap into my inner child, if you know what I mean. But however, A healthy balance must be formed. And I think there are healthy and unhealthy forms of nostalgia. And obviously, this film is a cautionary tale about the dark side of it. And from my own personal experience, I think a healthy form of nostalgia is taking inspiration from the remnants of your childhood and applying it to one's writings and or artwork. And that is something that Jane Schoenbrunn has done here with this film, apply their own nostalgia to art. Um, so, yeah, that's I Saw the TV Glow, which is currently streaming on Max. Um, Next up is Memoir of a Snail, written and directed by Adam Elliott. This is a self-discovery journey follows twins Grace and Gilbert Poodle, voiced by Sarah Snook and Cody Smith McPhee, through their childhood into their adulthood. It is narrated by Grace to her pet sale Sylvia. The narration that would be used as a distractive crutch in some films is used to a highly effective degree here, as it makes the novel actually feel, as it makes the film, actually feel like a memoir. Grace is a when we first meet when we first meet Grace, she's a misfit. She was born with a facial cleft palate deformity. The repair makes her look like a rabbit. Gilbert would be the one at school standing up for her. And Grace and Gilbert's mother died in childbirth, so they were raised by their paraplegic father, Percy, dealing with sleep apnea and alcoholism. And when Grace's parents met, their mother wore a snail dress. And this sparked Grace's fascination with snails. And so they remind her of her mother that she never knew but wished she did, obviously. And after the death of their father, Grace and Gilbert are brought to separate foster homes, vowing to return to one another in the future. Gilbert is adopted by abusive religious fanatics, and Grace is adopted by inattentive swingers. Grace then develops a close friendship with an eccentrically kooky elderly woman named Pinky, voiced wonderfully by Jackie Weaver. I don't want to reveal specifics, but stuff happens that leads Grace down a dark mental health spiral. She hoards snails, guinea pigs, ashes, and other knickknacks. Grace suffocates herself with her hoarding, which she uses as a band-aid for grief. Now it's funny, in Flow that I mentioned earlier, there's a character, there's a lemur who likes to collect items that they find. And then my mom in the theater was like, the lemur's a hoarder. So there are psychological studies linking hoarding and grief, especially when it comes to objects of sentimental value, of course. I'm going to read a brief excerpt from a blurb of grief hoarding from griefspeechless.com. Objects, unlike people, don't leave us. They stay mute witnesses to our joys and sorrows. For those navigating grief, possessions can serve as a link to the past, a bridge connecting them to the memories of loved ones. In the act of hoarding, there's an unconscious transfer of emotional energy, a way of holding on to the intangible by clinging to the tangible. In Memoir of a Snail, Grace's mother is intangible to her, but the snail-related objects are, and as well as the snails. This movie is about getting stuck and learning to move forward from guilt, grief, and trauma, and learning to love oneself in the process. It's equally melancholic and life-affirming. The writing of the characters is excellent. Adam Elliott really keeps you invested in them. Whether or not you're a hoarder, I think a lot of people, including myself, see themselves in Grace because of the desire to be loved, wanted, and included by others. And I'm still processing this poignant masterpiece of animation. Not only does this deserve a nomination, or if not win for Best Animated Feature, it's a tough call between that and Flow with me. I think both are really fantastic. But it also deserves a Best Original Screenplay nomination. And Sarah Snook's voice work in this, brilliant. she really is so good as Grace. Okay, so that's Memoir of a Snail, currently on VOD. Uh, Next up is A Real Pain, written and directed by Jesse Eisenberg. Now, this is another movie that deals with grief and trauma. The story follows polar opposite cousins David and Benji, played by Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin. So they go to Poland to do a tour centered on the history of the Holocaust and its survivors. The shots of Poland are gorgeous. And on their trip, they intend on visiting their beloved grandmother's home as well. And while Jesse Eisenberg's character David is quiet and reserved, and in his head a lot, Kieran Culkin's character Benji is an eccentric goofball. However, behind that eccentricity, he's masking pain and grief, especially heightened after the loss of their grandmother. And Jesse Eisenberg's character, quiet and reserved, and seemingly together as he may be, he has a lot of anxiety. So for as different as they may seem, they actually have a lot more in common as far as them both grappling with grief and trauma, even if they express it in different ways. But Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin both give excellent performances, and the banter that they have throughout the film is equally hilarious and heartbreaking. Kieran Culkin's character is, as the title suggests, a real pain in the ass to Jesse Eisenberg. I mean, Jesse Eisenberg's character loves him, but he also knows that he's psychologically fragile. I also love the members of the tour guide group, and I think this is a really underrated aspect of this movie that people aren't really talking about. Will Sharp is the tour guide leader, and so there are a couple of some of the interesting folks in their group include a recent divorcee played by Jennifer Grey. There's a cute old couple played by Daniel Oreskes and Liza Sadovi. And there's somebody from Rwanda played by Kurt Egiwawan, or I don't know how to pronounce his name, but they're really really interesting characters. And I think they help anchor the film. I think because they remind Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin, as well as the audience, that they're not alone in personal struggles. And yeah, this film has a lot of thought-provoking things to say about grief on a collective and personal level, with witty writing from Jesse Eisenberg that is both self-deprecating and compassionate. Yeah, so that's A Real Pain. And one more thing about Real Pain that I love is how I think it balances the buddy comedy aspect and the drama of dealing with personal and collective trauma really well. Okay, so moving on to Small Things Like These, directed by Tim Mielentz. Forgive my mispronunciation if I did that. So, set during Christmas time in Ireland in 1985, a coal and lumber worker and dedicated husband and father named Bill Furlong, played by Cillian Murphy, is, preparing for Christmas with his family. And he has a really sweet relationship with his family. And then one day, when bringing coal to a nearby convent, he discovers a Magdalene laundry or asylum. For those of you who do not know, Magdalene laundries were institutional assignments designed to correct, or rather punish, fallen women, including women who had children out of wedlock, including those who were raped, women who showed any form of promiscuity, or who were in the sex work field. He notices the women here are not physically well and are being forced to clean the floors of the convent. And this is just his first trip. On his second trip, Bill finds a young woman named Sarah, played really, really, really well by Zara Devlin. Really underrated performance this year. So she's locked in an outbuilding where she recently gave birth, and noticing the suffering that these women undergo against their will, Bill has flashbacks of his troubled childhood. He's then inclined to show generosity out of an understanding of trauma. This movie is being criminally underrated and underdiscussed. Cillian Murphy's performance is outstanding, as well as Zara Devlin. And this is one of those films that really make you feel grateful for life and inspires you to be kind to others. And yeah, and it's a really good adaptation of the novella, and it expands upon it too a bit, with some new and some extra information. And Small Things Like These is still playing in a very limited amount of theaters, and as of now, I think you can rent on YouTube. I highly recommend this film as well as the novella. Yeah. So that's Small Things Like These. Next up is Touch, Iceland's entry into the international feature race, directed by Baltasar Kormákur, based on the novel of the same title. I have not read, full disclosure, but I thought the movie was pretty great, quite fantastic. So, spanning multiple decades, this cross-continental love story is centered on an elderly man named Christopher, played by Egil Olafsson, who is wonderful, trying to find his lost first love from 50 years prior. It flashes back and forward from the past and present. In the flashbacks set in the later 1960s, Christopher is an Icelandic student at the London School of Economics. Due to his left-wing political beliefs not accepted by the school administrators, Christopher leaves and is employed at a Japanese restaurant owned by a man named Takahashi. Christopher meets Takahashi's daughter Miko, and the two fall in love. We see Christopher becoming a chef. This would pair really well with the taste of things as far as enduring love and cooking, are concerned. And then events later occur in the movie that I don't want to give away, but, that inevitably separate them. And then Christopher's journeys back to Miko is so beautiful. This movie is tenderly romantic and will make you hungry for both food and travel. This is going to sound completely sappy, but Touch is one of those movies that show you how really, really true soulmate love never, no matter how old you are, endures. And Touch is available to watch on Peacock. Yeah, I wish more people were talking about this one. It's a real romantic gem. And then last but not least, Hong Kong's entry. I said Japan because I was just reading, Touch. As part of Touch's. There's a Japanese restaurant there. But anyway, Hong Kong's entry into the international feature race. Twilight of the Warriors, Walled In, directed by Soi Chiang, based on a comic book and a novel. I believe it was a comic book, and then like a novel was. Let me just look it up exactly what it was based on. Forgive me for doing this during the middle of the video. Okay, it's based on the novel of the City of Darkness by Yu Yi and the Manhua, a graphic novel guess a Chinese graphic novel of the same name by Andy Seto. So set in Hong Kong in the 1980s, a refugee named Chan Lok Kwan, played by Raymond Lam, stumbles upon the Kowloon walled city. In order to get by, he takes part in underground fighting rings. He's mentored by a martial arts master named Cyclone, played wonderfully by legend Louis Koo, and he befriends the 12th Master, Shin and AV. And together they rise up against the big bad named Mr. Big, played by another legend, Sammo Hung. And this movie is a blast from start to finish. It not only has incredible fight choreography, but the character work is very intricate. It's a compelling hero's journey as the protagonist learns lessons and reckons with his troubled past along the way. In a perfect world, this would be nominated not only for International Feature, but Best Adapted Screenplay at the Oscars. And yeah, and it's really, really great cinematography and production design of the walled city. And, it gives some interesting history about Hong Kong and mainland China, so it's currently streaming on Amazon Prime. And if you like action movies or martial arts movies, definitely give it a watch. So that's Twilight of the Warriors, and that is also the end of this video. I will be back with more reviews, as I do at the end of each year. And at the end, I'm going to talk about some first-time watches, at least of the first half of the 2025 school calendar year. And I'll be giving more reviews of new releases as we reach the thick of award season, and because I'll talk, of course, older first time watches of older films too. But yeah, thank you for watching. I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday season, and yeah. If you like this video, then click the like button and subscribe. The link to my socials are in the description below. Thank you for watching. Goodbye for now.